I want to bring in Mr. Ken Abramowitz. Ken runs a venture capitalist fund. You invest in healthcare companies, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, sir?
Yes.
Okay. You got a couple of $100 million in the fund.
Yes.
450 million?
Yes.
You know what you're talking about?
I think so.
Okay, so if Dr. Price is confirmed Health and Human Services, and if Obamacare is repealed and gradually replaced with a new system, what healthcare stocks, companies, should I buy into? Yeah, come on, you're on the spot. You got to tell me.
Well, I hate to say this, but what happens in the government doesn't have a huge effect in the stock market or in the venture capital market.
Wait a second. You're saying that whatever happens to Obamacare is not going to affect the health insurers and the drug companies that much? Is that accurate?
You should bear in mind that 100% of Americans have health care.
Right.
90% of people have health insurance.
Yep.
Okay, so the big debate is how do we get health insurance to the 10% of the people that don't have health insurance, but 100% of people have health care.
Got it.
So, for example, if someone needs a pharmaceutical or has to go to the hospital, they get it. 100% of the people get it. The difference, though, is for the 10% of the people who do not have health insurance, the drug companies give away free drugs, and the hospitals give away free hospital days. So if there's health insurance for that 10%, then the drug companies get paid for the 10% of the drugs that they hand out for free. And the hospitals get paid for the 10% of the beds that they hand out for free. So it does help a little bit for the drug companies.
At the margin.
Yes.
At the margin. Okay.
Right.
More important is perhaps Mr. Trump's suggestion that the drug companies are getting away with murder and that they're going to have to bid for drugs and pharmaceuticals, bid against each other to get the price down. That, I take it, is a big deal for the big pharmaceutical companies.
It is and isn't at the same time. Remember, politicians make promises, but Congress actually has to agree to something like this. Now, in Europe, the governments do control the price of drugs. They do have price controls. You have to get a drug approved through their legal authorities like the FDA, but you also have to get approval for reimbursement from the government. In the U.S., we have to get insurance companies and pharmacy benefit managers to approve a price. But since many of the drugs are single-source drugs, particularly the biologicals, the injectables, the high-technology specialty drugs, there's really not that much competition on price for them. And if the government were able to dictate price or have price controls, yes, the government can lower the price, but unfortunately people will die 10 years later because drug companies look for needles in haystacks. You want the maximum number of drug companies looking for the maximum number of needles and the maximum number of haystacks. When you have price controls, the innovation suffers.
This is fascinating, because we all assume that, Obamacare and what Mr. Trump says is so very, very important for these health stocks. It's not. Thank you for being with us, Ken.
It adds a little bit of emotion and excitement from time to time, but it's not the basic issue.
Got it. Now, you run a venture capitalist fund, so you're investing on the ground floor of promising up-and-coming healthcare companies, right?
Yes.
That's what you do.
I actually manage two funds, a venture capital fund and a public equity fund. I'm both long-term oriented and short-term oriented simultaneously.
Okay. So, Ken Abramowitz, the senator said, look, we don't have the right to health care in America. But everybody, you know this, everybody does have health care.
Right.
Walk into a hospital and they've got to serve you.
Right. So we have a de facto right to health care in this country. It's not in the Constitution or Bill of Rights. You can't find any legislation that says that. But in effect, through the years of all the regulation and progress in the country, 100% of Americans have the de facto right to health care.
Throughout the morning, Ken Abramowitz has sat patiently next to me, hardly getting a word in edgewise. That's unfair, because this man runs a venture capital fund which invests in healthcare stocks. He's been watching the Price confirmation hearing, and I guarantee there is nothing that you have heard thus far this morning which makes any difference to your investment in the healthcare industry. Am I right or am I right?
No, that's exactly right. Remember, 90% of what happens in healthcare happens because different companies come out with new products or competitors come out with new products. Only 10% of what happens to healthcare stocks has something to do with Washington.
Fair point. I want one other question. I want to answer it. You invest in startup companies. You're a venture capitalist, hundreds of millions of dollars. What's the most promising area of new entrepreneurial companies? In what area are they engaged?
Well, I look at medical devices and pharmaceuticals. In medical devices, heart valves.
Heart valves.
Valves are full of innovation as device companies figure out a way to implant heart valves without cutting open the chest.
Really?
In pharmaceuticals, immuno-oncology is the hot field where new drugs are being developed that don't have to use traditional chemotherapy but boost the body's immune system to attack the cancer.
And you could care less what happens in the Dr. Price hearing. Is that correct, sir?
Well, I do as an individual and as a citizen,
Yes.
but not as an investor.
I care about heart valves because I just had one of those echocardiogram tests. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Right.
You can actually look on a screen and see the valves opening and closing.
That's right.
Mine are okay, by the way.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Abramowitz, it was a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you very much indeed,
You're
sir.
welcome.